The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. A Manta Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast on hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizong leggings? Wait. Are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast. A podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. Excelsior to you all. I'm Brian Keene. Christopher Golden is absent this week. Actually, Chris has been absent the last 2 weeks, so have I. We apologize for that. We know that the podcast has fallen behind schedule, but you need to remember that this podcast is something Chris and I do just for the love of it. Of course, we have other podcasts, both of us. I have the horror show with Brian Keene. Chris has Three Guys with Beards. Both of those shows have required our attention over the last 2 weeks. We've also got deadlines we're working on. Chris is working on a third Shark novel and a top secret comic book project. I'm working on some top secret television stuff and a new novel called Curse of the Bastards. And unfortunately, Defenders Dialogue has fallen behind. But we will be back next week with a brand new episode, brand new content as the J.M. DeMatteis era continues. We are going to see the Defenders take on a dark version of Dr. Seuss. Yeah, believe it or not. We're going to see the return of the Squadron Sinister. Or are they? We're going to find out just what the hell is going on with Kyle Richmond, a.k.a. Nighthawk. Is he dead? Is he alive? Is this a doppelganger? A new clone saga? We don't know, but we're going to find out. And, spoiler alert, we are going to see the return of the elf with a gun. So that's all coming up. Meanwhile, this week we have a very special treat for you. If you are a regular listener to the show, then you are intimately familiar with Scott Edelman. I don't know if intimately is the right word there, but you know who Scott Edelman is, regardless of whether you're intimate with him or not. Scott, of course, is a living legend in the comic book field, particularly for enthusiasts and fans of Bronze Age Marvel and DC. What we have for you today is an interview that Scott conducted with the one and only Steve Gerber. Now, if you're a regular listener, you are absolutely familiar with Steve Gerber. Scott very graciously gave us permission to air this recording. This was recorded back in the 70s when they were both young men. And in it, Gerber talks about his time on Defenders and Omega, Howard the Duck, Man-Thing, all of his Marvel projects from back then. I want to definitely thank Scott for granting us permission to air this on the show. I also want to give a shout out to musician and author Matt Hayward. Now, Matt lives in Ireland. These days, he makes his living as a horror writer. Before that, he made his living as a rock musician, one of Ireland's most noted rock guitarists. He still has an extensive sound studio there, and he managed to clean up this audio recording. This was done on cassette tape, and Matt makes it sound really good. So thanks to both of them, and we hope you enjoy it. Because I won't be here at the end of the show to tell you all this, let me just remind you now that Defenders Dialogue is brought to you by the Project Entertainment Network. They host this show. They host the horror show with Brian Keene. They host Chris's Three Guys with Beards and 22 other podcasts. There's something for everyone. if you enjoy this show, if you enjoy listening to it for free, the best thing you can do to support it is to support the Project Entertainment Network. Maybe be a supporter of theirs on Patreon. Just give them $1 a month. $1 a month, price of a cup of coffee, and you can get all kinds of exclusive content, exclusive podcast episodes, all kinds of things. Or, check them out, projectentertainmentnetwork.com. Maybe buy a Defenders Dialogue coffee mug or t-shirt. We sure would appreciate it. And also a shout out, as always, to our engineer, Tommy Clark. Tommy is putting together this week's episode, so I'm making extra work for him. But I do appreciate it, Tommy. And if you appreciate Tommy, be sure to check out his podcast, The Necrocasticon. It's all about the intersection between heavy metal and horror as a genre, be it film or fiction. And yeah, Necrocasticon is also available on, you guessed it, the Project Entertainment Network. So let's get to Scott Edelman and Steve Gerber. And as I said, Chris and I will be back next week. Excelsior, true believers.
Just say a little something. Make sure it's
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9.
Feel bad. Okay, let's start with crazy. If it's something new that you're doing that no one has seen you do, like they've seen Man-Thing in the front.
Okay.
What new things do you think you'll bring to the book?
Okay, we're adding a whole bunch of new features. One will be a regular 6-page feature called The Underground Almanac, which is going to be things that were good in the book. Work on, and what I'm going to try and do is just improve on it, as best I can.
The thing to do is steal comics books, one good feature, the Barefoot. Take Barefoot from comics books, the one good feature.
I don't think I've read it. I haven't. In fact, the funny thing is, I really just picked up my first issue of Mad in about 5 years, the other day to look through it, and was pleased to find out that it's not any funnier than Crazy. I really am. This is not to say that I don't think Crazy can be made quite a bit funnier.
But you're covering yourself in case it can.
Well, no, I'm just happy to find out the competition isn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be, really.
Trouble with up your nose.
I still don't like that comment.
What? No, no, I'm serious about that. Crazy can stand improvement here and there. I think Marv knew it, and I know it. But again, I don't know. I'm not going to go into a tirade about other magazines, but I think it would be nice to do a funny humor magazine for a change.
Be the first.
Yeah, really. I mean, the one thing I do want to get away from with the book is the fact that magazine humor has become very, very stereotyped over the past, since the inception of Mad. They established a style that was extremely funny when it began, and remained funny and did well for them for about 10 years, and they're still using it. And the book, Mad, has not basically changed over 10 years. And Crazy, as people have intimated, started out as a sort of Mad imitation, grew from that very rapidly into something else. Within the first couple of issues, it began taking on its own identity. And what I would like to do with the book now is make as total a break as I possibly can with the old style of magazine humor. Find something new to do. I'm not sure exactly what that means yet. We're sort of searching around different directions and see what happens. But I want this to be as different from Mad, ultimately, and from The Lampoon, from anything else being published, as, say, the Firesign Theater is, different from a Fanny Fox record, that kind of thing, really.
Okay, to get on to the color books. Speaking of Man-Thing, how about expounding on your theory of comic books as self-therapy?
As what? Self-therapy? Some of the recent issues have been written about subjects that have bothered me. The story about the fat kid, Giant-Sized Man-Thing number 4, wasn't it? I guess, yeah. Had a lot to do with my personal experience, growing up. Edmund's family experiences were all fictionalized. Almost everything else was true. all of the school experiences were, you know, things that came out of my own past, except that I didn't die. That happened to another kid. That's true. That was based on an actual incident. And it's not so much therapy exactly. I guess it is in a way. It's a means of getting out rage. The trouble is that when you let it become just therapy, it sometimes weakens the story an awful lot. I did not like the last chapter of that story where Man-Thing comes into the gym and basically tears everybody limb from limb. You know, it came out as pure revenge. You know, and while I think maybe it had some dramatic and visual things, you know, that made it good for the comic book medium, it was not a true ending, so to speak, you know, for that particular story. The true ending of the story probably should have been that absolutely nothing happened at all. Alice read the manuscript to the kids. They listened to it. They said, well, maybe we'll print it. We'll see. She went back to her locker, put it away, and that's the end of the story, and nothing happened. There was an alternate end to the story, and that's what I did, you know, in the following
Speaking
books,
of that
which is,
story,
yeah,
I'd like to bring it. The point you just mentioned, she put the manuscript, as I remember, in her locker, and then they jumped her.
Right.
And they didn't look in her locker. And they wanted the manuscript.
They didn't know the combination of the locker, that's all. They didn't want to vandalize school property.
Oh,
they didn't
they
mind
would torture her.
They didn't mind beating up the girl, but
Oh.
they would not want to damage school property, yeah. That was actually was going through my mind at that time, yeah. I felt that was a little extreme, too. I mean, you know, to be perfectly honest. We talked about this before. The scene, the way I had written it originally, had her just on the floor of the gymnasium, you know, surrounded, encircled by, you know, Edmund's parents and the gym teacher and these other people. I decided, you know, basically for visual impact, that it should be something a little stronger than that, having her hanging from those gym rings, you know. I don't think that was exceptionally realistic any more than I think the rest of that last chapter was realistic. And the next two issues of Man-Thing, in a sense, were an apology for the ending of that story, an apology to myself. I don't know what the readers are going to think of it. But, you know, the other thing that could have happened as a result of Edmund's death was a severe reaction against the high school for all the wrong reasons. You know? And that's what happened with the book burning. And, you know, the subsequent events, the death and rebirth of Man-Thing in issues 17 and 18. And, you know, that's it, really. Those books were written about things I was concerned about, but I don't, you know, I think it becomes a problem when they really become therapy.
Well, it sort of seems you're doing the kind of stories where Denny O'Neil went wrong with Green Lantern, and that he was saying, this issue I'm going to be relevant, and the next issue, and it just seems as if you're not trying at it.
What do you mean
but
by
it's happening?
trying?
Well, I'm going to do a story that's relevant, and it's not really going to be a comic book story, and everyone will be able to, you know, the sort of story that they were attempting, but they tried too hard and lost it. A few of the final issues, I say, well, everyone expects me to be relevant, just like everyone expects Steve Gerber to do strange stories
I was reading an interview with Denny the other day, where he said that the stories he felt didn't work were the ones that...
we might as well put in a plug for the Competitive Fan magazine at this point. It's Amazing World of DC.
And it's fun.
Yes, I told Paul I would stick that in somewhere this issue.
All right, but anyway, the stories Denny felt didn't work were, he said in this interview, were the stories that he didn't feel anything about in particular. I don't know which stories those were, but I don't know. To a large extent, I feel the same way about Man-Thing. I think the book has become something other than what the typical Marvel superhero book or monster book is. You know, if there is such a thing as a typical book. It's something different, you know, whatever that is, and it has to be handled differently, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was talking to Herb, I got him on tape elsewhere, and he was saying that books like Man-Thing couldn't have been done, let's say, at Marvel 6-7 years ago.
Absolutely. For one thing, we weren't publishing anything but superhero books 6 or 7 years ago. for another thing, I mean, you know, those kind of books I don't think could have been done anywhere 6 or 7 years ago. The world has changed dramatically since, well, we're really talking about 1960.
I'm not even talking about anything to do with code, though.
No, I'm not talking about the code either. No.
The Marvel style. The Marvel style is now diversified into different voices more than the...
It is. It has the same basic premise, I think, in every writer, that, you know, the books should contain a certain amount of action, that visuals are important, that character development is important. But, you know, when you have 6 or 7 years ago, 2 people were writing all the Marvel books. 3, Gary Friedrich, and Roy, and Stan, and that's it. There was bound to be more of a unified style at that time. Now we've got something like 12 different writers turning out books, and each one of them has, I think, brought something of his own, you know, to the Marvel style. There is still a very distinct and definite house style, you know, but it's, you know, there are different permutations of it. It's a little bit different the way everyone does it. You know. Jerry is probably closest, I think, to the original Marvel style. I think he'd agree with that, since he was brought in and trained basically by Roy and Stan in the very early days. Everyone since then has changed the style a little bit. Steve Englehart does something different. Don McGregor does something different. You know, it's yeah. What can you say? That's, you know. I'd just be repeating myself the same thing. And I do something different, you know.
Well, Man-Thing seems to have a progression.
Don't you feel that's good for the book, Steve?
Yes. Oh, I'm saying it is, yeah, definitely. I mean, the other aspect of that is, you know, that unified house style is fine when you're publishing 12 books. When you're putting out 30 or 40 new books a month, you know, and all of them read exactly alike, it would be death. I mean, there's no way we, you know, that would help sell the books at all, you know. The diversification, the fact that they all are a little bit different, you know, is probably what keeps the line as vital as it is. You know.
Okay, one last question for Man-Thing. The entire series seems to be progressing. Each issue, it's not just something that,
Yeah.
like for instance, something Doug is planning on writing a final Gabriel Devil Hunter story, because he felt that if he didn't, it would be a verse. It wouldn't go in with the character. He'd have to change the character, make it something that isn't in order to continue it. So he's writing a final story. Do you have somewhere in your mind a final Man-Thing story?
No.
A direction or a goal in which you're heading with the character? Or Richard Rory, just supporting characters?
Oh, yeah. Well, what's going on with Richard Rory over the next couple of issues is going to boggle several minds out there, folk. I don't want to give it away. The whole thing will be, you know, I mean, explained in issue 19, I think. But that issue also, 19, is the start of like a 5 or 6 part serial for the book, which is something we haven't done for a long time on Man-Thing. Korak and Jennifer will be back in the stories on a regular basis. Possibly even the Duck popping up here and there, you know, for a panel or two. And you know, a whole basic, not really a return to the weirdness, you know, of the early issues, but something new built on that will be going on for the next, you know, really 5 or 6 issues. As for Richard Rory, yeah, I mean, that character is developing and changing, and there's a new character added to the book in the second half of the book burning story, which will be out by the time this is, you know, I guess, you know, published, so I can mention her. That's Olivia's daughter, Carol Selby. She will be a regular in the series, and it's changing. You know, the relationship between them, I think, is probably going to be, if not a permanent thing, a longer-lasting thing than anything he's had up to this point. You know, but under very, very weird circumstances.
Now, speaking about Defenders, so we can get into talking about comics.
Yeah.
Getting into the characters. What are you doing now that Steve Englehart has acquired Yellow Jacket? What are you thinking of new team members, things like that?
Wondar and Nita have been nominated over and over again as a pair to join the Defenders, and it's very possible. I'm toying around with the idea. nothing definite yet, but it's a good possibility. There have also been a lot of requests for Havoc, the mutant character from the X-Men, but I would suspect that he'll eventually be appearing again in the X-Men book, so probably will not come up in the Defenders. Venus has been suggested several times, Bill Everett's character, and I wouldn't object to having a mythological character in the group. Or another woman. The other suggestion that has struck me as the most interesting is creating somebody brand new. The one suggestion has been a black female character, which I would like to do. We've just done one, though, again in the X-Men book. The new character Storm, is a black heroine. But there are all kinds of possibilities. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, right now, just the basic four. Doctor Strange, the Hulk, Valkyrie, and Nighthawk. And the team won't grow to more than 6. I like the idea of Nita because of her relationship to Submariner, who was, originally one of the Defenders. And I like Wondar basically because he's such a silly character, and there's a lot of things that could be done with it, within the context of that group. So they'll probably be popping up at least for a couple of issues to see how the readers like them. Guest stars, the Guardians of the Galaxy will be around for a couple of issues, starting in Giant Defenders #5, and then there'll probably be a 2 or 3 part series after that with the Defenders in the future battling the Badoon, and also involved in possibly individual stories within the major story. Possibly a sword and sorcery kind of thing with Valkyrie, and an alien world mysticism story with Doctor Strange. That's one of the things that I've been playing around with, is that nobody knows whether the demons and deities that Doctor Strange calls on are confined necessarily just to Earth or to other planets. There may be other gods in other sectors of the galaxy and the universe that Strange has no way of battling or no way of even knowing about. We have to assume that even the Ancient One's knowledge was not infinite, and so that's one basis for a story right there. Nighthawk, we'd get involved in a futuristic science fiction story, and the Hulk, I don't know, but probably teaming each one of them up with one member of the Guardians, that sort of thing, and then doing that for about 2 issues, and then a climactic 3rd issue, big battle with the Badoon, that sort of thing. So that's what I'm planning right now. Then after that, a return to Earth, and some more business with Valkyrie and her husband, which is also becoming, going to be a major subplot in the issues to come.
One of the things about super teams, when they were originally started, like, say, the Avengers of the Justice Society, they said, well, we'll do it like this. We'll take all these characters who are in their own books and who are fantastic, and we'll put them together, and how can we help it have this marvelous team that could fight anything? Now, then people start to realize, if we have all these characters who are in their own books, we can't do anything. Well, we can't have to do stories which don't affect the characterization created in their own book.
Okay,
so do you feel that's changing? Now we have people, like the X-Men,
definitely.
Fantastic Four.
It changed. It changed with the Fantastic Four, basically. That was the first departure from it. The original Avengers was a return to the first, Justice Society, Justice League type format. The thing you have to remember is not that they got them together because now we have a team that can't, can never be defeated and can fight anything. They got them together because now we have a team that will sell, yes, and sell very well. Stan realized the limitations of it early on with the Avengers, but then, comic books had never been done that way before, where the characters changed from issue to issue, and where things happened to them. All the members of the Justice Society and the Justice League, even now, nothing basically ever changes in their original books. Or their individual books, I mean. So you don't have that problem that you do with say the Avengers when Thor and Iron Man and Ant-Man were the major characters, and things were happening in their books all the time. I have that problem with Doctor Strange and the Hulk, and the best I can do is just sort of watch what's going on in those other books and talk to the writers of the other books and try and keep consistent what we're doing. I don't like it. I really have to admit I don't like working with Doctor Strange and the Hulk within the context of the Defenders. They're both incredible characters, and I enjoy using them when I do use them in the book. But at the same time, it makes the book a lot more difficult to write because I can't do anything with them that I want to do. Very, properly, Steve and Len have control over what is happening to those individual characters. So the best I can do is sort of follow their lead, and concentrate on the personal lives of Nighthawk and Valkyrie.
Have you thought of making the Defenders an all non-appearing elsewhere member?
The theory is the book would not sell without Doctor Strange or the Hulk, or at least without the Hulk. And I can't see eliminating Doctor Strange and keeping the Hulk. Somehow, the two are a pair in my mind. I don't know why. I see the two together when I think of the Defenders. So
one a physical idiot, and
the
other one not doing anything physically.
It's like with Doc Strange gone, there would be no one who could really control the Hulk, for one thing. Nighthawk certainly couldn't. He can't be reasoned with. And Val just doesn't have the leadership potential at this point to be able to, make her authority felt the way Doctor Strange does. So I see them as kind of a working, unit in the team. And, they both have to stay. If one stays, the other has to stay. It's like that. And they both have to stay. Down are the orders, And so I'm making the best of it. I don't think they've been a detriment to the book at all. Not to my feeling. The one problem with it, of course, is the one that the readers have pointed up over and over again, is that Doctor Strange is not an action character. He doesn't work best dealing with physical menaces. And in fact, looking back over some of the stories, the really old Doctor Strange stories, the Ditko things, I found that he very rarely used his powers on, or used his spells. He doesn't even really have powers. That's another question. On physical entities. They were mostly used against spiritual menaces of one kind or another. And so to me, it's jarring to see him knocking around the Sons of the Serpent with, animated hoses and that sort of thing. But a large portion of the readership likes it. As many as don't like it do like it. And the letters I've seen also, which is most of them, I read all the mail, is the letters I've seen have been violently opposed to getting rid of the Hulk, too. So they stay.
I think that's it, unless you have any other books up your sleeves, I don't know.
No, nothing yet.
Any statement you want to make in general to the assembled fans, which are here before you, in this little box, hiding.
Buy Man-Thing, please. It's a very good book. And that's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you love comic books and consider yourself a die-hard fan? Then you need to listen to Parlapod. We have news, reviews, and interviews with your favorite pros, all while bringing some serious laughs. New episodes drop every Wednesday in time for New Comic Book Day. Parlapod is available on the Project Entertainment Network, all major podcast outlets, and parlapod.com. Tune in and fuel your fandom with Parlapod.
My favorite story a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows.
Three guys with beards: Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybar, and Chris Golden.
Tom Clark from Necrocast Edelman.
Brian Keene of The Horror Show. Chuck Buda and Armand Rosamilia of The Mando Method.
Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans.
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith.
John Urban-Sick of Ink Stains.
Biz Zung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.